Morning, ladies and gents.
Good morning.
Our Gospel reading this morning tells, in John's Gospel's version, the story of Jesus' baptism. And then it goes on to talk about the gathering of the first disciples. If you read on after the bit we've just read, it goes on to gather a few more disciples. And each version of the Gospel gives that slightly different take on that. But I want to look at John's version a little more closely. This story happens after John's been challenged by the Pharisees as to whether he's the Messiah. It's some time after Jesus' baptism, because we know from the other Gospels that Jesus went off into the wilderness for 40 days. So it's a while after that. And John's been out baptising other people. We assume on this day that his disciples are with him. And he says to them, "There's the Lamb of God." He points out that this is Jesus, and he tells them about what happened when he baptised Jesus. He tells them about the dove that came down. And that story is in all of the other Gospels. And strangely enough, my colleagues on training, as you know, my colleagues were last year in the Holy Land as part of their training, and they reaffirmed their baptism vows in the River Jordan. And as they actually were doing that ceremony, a dove appeared, much to their amazement. And they were most impressed with their tutor for managing to get that to work exactly on time. He claims he had no hand in it. But we know that Jesus' baptism was special. And then the next day, after John has pointed Jesus out to his disciples, they're standing again, he's talking with two of his disciples, and he points Jesus out again. Now we know one of these disciples is called Andrew, because we find that out later on. But we don't know who the other one is. And it's assumed that it is the Apostle John who wrote this Gospel, because this recollection is very clear. He remembers this event very clearly. And John points out Jesus, and these two disciples just follow him. Off they go. You have to wonder how John felt about that, because they just turn and go. Jesus asks them, "What are you looking for?" Well, he doesn't say to them, "What do you want?" or "What are you doing?" These two strange men are following him. He says, "What are you looking for?" He assumes, in some translations, that comes out as, "What are you seeking?" And if you think about it, that's quite a special thing. It isn't, "Well, what do you want?" but "What are you looking for?" What are we looking for when we're following Jesus? And they answer with a question, caught a bit unawares. They say, "Where are you staying?" Perhaps they were thinking about going to visit him. And he doesn't say, "Oh, Galilee Views Hotel down the road." He says, "Come and see." He invites them to come and spend time with him. And they go. And they spend the day with him. Now, we don't know what happened when they spent the day with him. We don't know what was said. But we do know it made a big impression on them. Because our writer, John, perhaps, tells us that it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon when they finished. And his special memories mark themselves. Special occasions mark themselves on our memories. Most of us can remember where we were and what was happening when we heard that Princess Diana had died. If we're old enough, when President Kennedy was shot. When people walked on the moon. That makes an impression on us, and it sticks in our memory. So this clearly made an impression on these men, and it stuck in his mind. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. we do know that Andrew went off to find his brother. He went off to find Simon, as he was called then, and he took him to Jesus. And Jesus knew exactly who he was. And he said, and you're going to be called Peter. Now, with the benefit of hindsight and the writing of the books, we know what Peter went on to do. He went on to be a great servant for Jesus and for Christ and founded the church. And perhaps had it not been for Andrew going to get his brother, we may not be here today. But he didn't know that at the time. He just went to tell him that this was a special person. So the story is about following Jesus. It's about spending time with Jesus. It's about becoming part of that. So I want you to imagine how that might feel. And so I'm going to just take us through part of that gospel. And let's imagine we were there. You might want to close your eyes. If you feel like that closing your eyes will send you to sleep, please keep them open. But just go with my voice and imagine as we go through this part what's actually happening. So imagine that you're standing with John, who you follow, who you respect, and your friend Andrew. And you're standing on a road. You're just chatting. It's warm, sun shining, palm trees are blowing gently in a breeze. The road's dusty. And a man walks by. And he's familiar. You saw him yesterday. John said he was the Son of God. And then John says,
look, here is the Lamb of God.
And you just follow him. Something makes you and Andrew just get up and follow this man. You leave John standing and you follow him. So you're walking down the path after the man. And he turns and he looks at you. And he says,
what are you looking for?
Now Andrew, thinking a little bit quicker than you are, says,
Rabbi, where are you staying?
You wonder about that. Okay, that was a good thinking from Andrew's point. And Jesus says,
come and see.
And so you do. Off you go with this man down the path. And you go to where he was staying. Where does Jesus stay for you? So you go with the house that Jesus is in. And you sit there. And what do? What happens? And you're spending time with Jesus, who's talking. How does it feel? And you talk and you listen all day, a long time. And there's the sun starting to go down. You leave. And you go back down the road. It's 4 o'clock. Nearly dinner time. Andrew goes off to find his brother Simon Peter. I'm going to find Simon, he says. I'm going to take him to Jesus. Who are you going to find? Who are you going to bring to Jesus? know that Simon Peter did great things for Jesus. Who knows how many people who could do great things with Jesus are just waiting for you or for me to bring them to Jesus. Let's pray. Lord, give us faith to follow you as Andrew and the other disciple did. Encourage us to spend time with you. And give us the courage to bring others along with us and introduce them to you, that they may share in the things that we have, and that they may enjoy your love too.